Back once again, this time for a 12:30 kickoff, Coventry versus Watford. Coventry come into this after a 2-1 win away at Fratton Park, never an easy place to go. That result makes it 6 wins in a row and 11 unbeaten in the league. We're in incredible form, sitting top of the table with goals flying in from everywhere. In fact, the top 3 championship goal scorers are all Sky Blues. But have we seen a slight dip in performance levels? Watford, meanwhile, picked up a solid 2-1 win over West Brom last time out. Their season has been somewhat inconsistent, sitting 12th overall, however, on home form good enough for second in the league, but away form bottom of the pack. It's hard to judge them right now after their change in management. Paolo Pezzolano out, Javi Gracia in. Returning to the club, he took to the 2019 FA Cup final. 2 games in charge so far, a win and a loss, but early signs of promise and a bit of structure returning. Now into expected lineups. Coventry surprised us with that 3-4-3 system, and it managed to get the job done versus Portsmouth. Wolfenden got his start, and defensively, Coventry looked solid. It's a difficult one to predict moving forward. Lampard may well see the 3-4-3 system as one to stay whilst Rodoni gets up to speed. However, I think we may well see a return of that 4-2-3-1 just to help get bodies further forward. More on this later. Watford, well, they lined up in a 4-4-2, though it was more of a hybrid system. Lots of positional fluidity, especially across those forward lines. They've been far from settled, however, with 5 different back 4 combinations in their last 5 games. Rotation's one thing, but that many changes will test any defensive chemistry, and perhaps Javi Gracia, he might start to steady the ship. So now a quick look into their tactical baseline numbers. Well, Watford sit a touch deeper than Coventry, and it's a slight hint on how they play with the ball. Offensively, they're relatively high, however they're not active pressers of the ball. The higher line typically comes from their build-up play. Average position-wise, the 2 central defenders keep width with a more compact central midfield. Wing-backs likes to roam forward when they can, and they play a target man system to keep the team stretched and find space. This is against West Brom, however, showing their average positions versus Sheffield United, you'll see that they sat much deeper in order to get onto the ball and retain possession. They actually had 60% possession there, width still being maintained by the defenders. Into their shots, well, shot-wise you'll see they take a high number of shots from outside the box, and they do in fact take the most out of any team in the Championship, with 44% of all shots being from outside the area. Pass map wise, if we take a look at their successful passes here, you can see that in the build phases there's similar angles to what we saw of Coventry earlier in the season. That said, they typically build at slower pace and deeper, and you can see that in the Sheffield United game. They had 60% possession, as we mentioned, much of it in those deeper areas. In fact, Watford actually spend the highest percentage in the Championship of all their action in their own third, so you can see how this is how they like to play. Their touch heat map does reference this also. They're more than happy to build out from the back, look for the right angle and feed to their more dangerous players moving forward. Quality over quantity. Average possession-wise, they're sat just behind Coventry, however, have a slightly better pass accuracy. That said, Coventry's stats have declined in recent games and are being propped up from earlier in the season. Touches in the opposition box, again, Coventry remain well out in front here. Watford lower down the list and perhaps indicates their willingness to shoot from distance as opposed to get into the box. Accurate crosses per match, they're right down in 17th, so not really a telltale trait of a big part of their game. XG conceded, they're on the lower end and slightly worse for goals conceded, however, still a sticky defence to break down. Moving up the pitch, expected goals, they're right up there, perhaps not finding the goal as much as they'd like to, however, but some positive signs of more to come. So, how do they like to play? As usual, we'll take a look at how they like to play without the ball. They'll set up in the 4-4-2 formation and won't offer too much of a press, more looking to cut off passing lanes. The midfield will stay compact and shift across as the ball is played around. The midfield and defence will remain somewhat passive, closing space, making it difficult to play through instead of putting challenges in. This nature of defending can often lead to space appearing for shots from distance, something they've not been great at defending from so far this season. Whilst their stats have been fairly solid, they've made a few individual errors throughout the games and could be to do with some of the amount of rotation throughout that defensive line. It's certainly something to watch out for. One side they've struggled with so far this season is defending set pieces, and well, they're going to be facing Coventry, who are simply the best at attacking them. With the ball, they have a few different sides to them, one being a more patient team, building from the back and gradually bring it up the pitch. Imran Louza, a key player for them, has Grimes-esque characteristics, being able to navigate the ball in tight areas, help them retain possession and dictate games. He can bring the calmness in the build-up, but also has the talent to switch things up a gear moving forward. He's even their top scorer and top for assists so far this season. He'll need to be limited to the amount of space and even touches he sees. Most of Watford's build-up and attacks will run through him. He's got a fantastic free kick in him as well, so watch out for set pieces. Their slower build-up play will typically result in the opposition tracking their movement, and without much options moving forward, Watford are more than happy to shoot from range, and they're not bad at it either, certainly got the quality in their team. They utilise their wing-backs to good effect, and Gracia in particular on the right-hand side move forwards a lot, and forward players will typically stay narrow and allow for space for their wing-backs to roam into. And this is one of the areas where they're most likely to counter into with lots of pace. They have big man Lampard. He stretches the defensive line, creating space in between the lines for other players to move into. He's an absolute giant and very good in the air, and whilst it's not Watford's preferred route, he certainly has it in him to latch onto longer balls, hold up play and of course offer a threat at set pieces. Now into Coventry, last out opting for that 3-4-3 system, looking to allow the wing-backs to get forward as much as possible. Now, a 2-1 win is a great result away at Fratton Park, but of course it's now time to pick it apart and see where we can improve. Whilst the win and the effort of the players was fantastic, system-wise it throws a few spanners. Defensively it was solid, it limited options in behind and they had minimal XG throughout. That said, it created a big divide between defenders and midfield, being dragged back to defend. When winning the ball, the options ahead were limited, so the most obvious choice was to seek longer, more direct routes. A key example was the second goal we scored against Portsmouth, and on that occasion it did work a treat. Sims was able to get the ball off the defence from a longer ball, hold up that ball and play it directly through to Thomas Asante, who was able to break those lines on a high pressing defence. However, in terms of overall control of the game, it left a lot of space between the midfield and the attackers, and Portsmouth were able to control a lot of the possession. Whilst we did manage to prevent most clear-cut threats, it concerns me against a team with a bit more quality moving forward, particularly a team that likes to shoot from distance. Press-wise as well, against the 4-4-2 system, it felt like our press was easy to bypass and it was asking a lot of Thomas Asante, in particular having to cover a lot of distance. I'll quickly bring up our pass map here and you can just see how, well, it was all a bit quite chaotic really. That said, we actually suffered a similar story in the Blackburn game where we had a 4-2-3-1 system, and yet for large parts they were able to control a lot of the possession, and in particular that space between the midfield and the attack. And it just made the game feel somewhat flatter and a bit more vulnerable, and the crowd certainly fed off it. Changing to a back four, however, helps us push that extra body into midfield, and for this game it makes logical sense to help put more pressure on the high quality midfield of Watford, pushing man for man to prevent being played through. That said, in terms of who can come in to facilitate that, you'd perhaps look at previously selected Eccles to do that job, and with question marks on his fitness, it may not be a viable option. It may well be a big ask of Thomas Asante to sit a touch deeper without the ball and may limit his attacking threat moving forward, so it may be a challenge for Lampard to pick his starting 11. In terms of breaking Watford down moving forward, well, there's plenty of options there. Mason Clark looking sharper each game, Javi Gracia should now be fully rested and ready to go. Thomas Asante, well, he's certainly firing. Sakamoto looking much brighter when he came on in the Portsmouth game, and Sims as well looking very good out versus Portsmouth. And I actually think Sims could suit the physicality of the Watford back line. We shall see. Into key players, well, for Coventry, we can't not include Thomas Asante here. 5 goals in 3 games, endless running, a great threat moving forward. Javi Gracia expecting the return into the starting 11. Again, joint top scorer of the league with Asante, always a threat when given the chance. And Victor Torp is likely to get a lot of space for some shots from distance in this game, and he certainly has the quality to deliver. For Watford, loser, great dictator of the play and offers a threat on goal. We'll need careful management here. Gracia is normally a standout performer for Watford and again offers a lot flying forward on the wing and can be very direct with his pace. Lampard, big and difficult to deal with. Thomas and Kitching are usually well drilled for this type of striker, but nonetheless offers a great threat. Now into predictions. I think we'll likely see the usual first start from Coventry, with a few shots away in the first 5-10 minutes. After that, expect Watford to take control of the game, finding space within the centre of the pitch and holding down possession. Watford will be patient in their approach, looking to break lines. When they can't build up, there's going to be the potential for lots of shots from distance. Coventry will continue with their direct nature of play with fast, quick transitions, and I'm expecting a few shots from distance here too. Overall, I don't think there'll be much in this game, and a goal either way will decide it. With Coventry's strong home form and Watford not able to get the job done away from home, I'm hoping it's Coventry that snatch it. The match plot model says 2-1 Coventry. However, you let me know what you think, let me know in the comments, what will the score be? Until next time, cheers, thanks for watching.